Hello my friends, how are you doing? This is Zed from Zed Outdoors and I hope you're having an awesome day. So today I'm spending time with friend and talented spoon carver, Oren Hetzroni. Oren, how are you doing?
I'm great, Zed. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So if you're not familiar with Oren, Oren has appeared in a previous video that we filmed on this visit down to see him during his visit to the United Kingdom. So as he was passing through London, we managed to meet up for the day, something we've been wanting to do for quite some time.
Yeah.
And so I really need to give a huge thank you to mutual friend Deborah Stabley-Morrell. If you've been familiar with my channel, you would have seen her on previous videos. So we're filming at her beautiful allotment here in London. Now, as I mentioned, this is part two of a two-part series that I'm filming with Oren. In the previous video, we looked at Oren's entire process from start to finish on how he carves a wooden spoon, literally taking a raw piece of wood all the way to a finished product. If you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend you check that out. Link to that will be down below in the description. So we're following on from that video, and in this part two, what Oren is going to kindly be demonstrating is his process for carving a wooden fork. And before you're thinking, no Zed, you've got to be joking, a wooden fork. These things exist, believe it or not, right? But there is a bit of a subtlety in how you're carving these. Now, I've been really wanting to carve a video on this film a video on this for ages, and I finally had the opportunity with Oren. Oren is like one of the main guys out there, like, you know, really pioneering the carving of wooden forks. His work is beautiful. If you haven't seen the previous video, we looked at a plethora of his work, and so this is a real delight to be able to spend time with him to film this tutorial. A couple of quick things before we begin with the actual meat and bones on this video. Number one, you can see it's a bit of a lengthy video because Oren is going to be showing the entire process, literally from a raw piece of wood all the way to a finished product. Now, to help facilitate that, what we've done, we've broke this video down into mini chapters. So if you scroll along the timeline, you can see all the different sections of the video marked out. We've also listed all the sections down below in the description. On the left hand side are the corresponding times in the video those sections appear. Now, YouTube has a very cool feature. If you click on those times, it will jump straight to that section. So as you move forward, you could use this video as a reference material, and rather than having to manually scroll through to find a section you want, you can just use that resource down below in the description to go straight to that section. Secondly, as I mentioned a moment ago, this is part two of a two-part series, and part one I will link to down below in the description. And thirdly, any links or references that we mentioned throughout this video will also be linked to down below in the description. So Oren, with your kind permission, shall we begin?
Let's do this.
So guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video where Oren Hetzroni is going to be teaching you how to carve a wooden fork. So Oren, the first question I have for you is, how did you embark upon a journey of carving forks?
I guess I'm a little bit of a rebel. In the spoon carving world, forks are a bit of a no-no. No, that's not really true. A lot of people have carved wooden forks. You see them all around. You see beautiful wooden forks, ancient ones. You see them in museums from the 18th, 16th century, 14th century. They've been around. Now, they're not as common as wooden spoons are. Of course, they don't last as long, so I assume we don't have as many historical references for wooden forks as we would for wooden spoons. But we see them from the Far East, beautiful Japanese wooden forks, really elegant things. And there's quite a few carvers out there that I know who have been doing them. So lately, I've just been enjoying doing a lot of these, so I've been making them like crazy. I enjoy making them a little bit more than spoons even once in a while. They do have a little bit more of a complicated evolution. There's a few rules that you need to follow here when you're carving a wooden fork, and we'll go over all these little details through this video. This specific fork is out of loquat wood. It's one of my favorite for making forks. It does not warp hardly at all. It barely warping here in this fork. You can see a little bit of warping right there. You see it kind of moved over a tiny bit, but that's the kind of thing you're looking for, is very straight grain. I'll go over all the details of what we're looking for when we start the process, but these are loquat. This is an oak fork. And this one was made out of a crook, out of a bent branch. That's how I have the underbark right here showing. If it was a straight piece, the underbark would go right through right there. In a fork, you really want straight grain in this area. So the grain kind of turns up this way, and that way I got this effect from the deep underbark that you get in oak. It can be a little fussy to clean when you're washing this, but it does give a really cool tactical effect right there, this little texture. And this is a fancy fork I was working on the other day at Spoon Club. I think this is sort of what we're going to be going for in this video, something of this sort. And this one is macadamia nut with some black Japanese lacquer on it. So some wiped urushi. And that's what we're going to be doing today.
So Oren, starting off with the process, we're talking about wood selection. So would you like to begin there?
So what I found here is crook from cherry. As you can see here, the branch is coming out this way. What that means that if this is the fork, this would be the handle. And then I have straight grain right here, which is perfect for a fork. It's exactly what we're looking for. The problem is when you have a piece like this is splitting it properly. So I made a little stop cut right here. I sawed in here just to lower the risk of it cracking at an angle or raising up right here when I'm splitting it. I didn't want to take the chance because finding a nice piece like this can be a little rare. So I was lucky enough to get this piece, and I didn't want to take the chance. And we're going to try to split it open. If you don't have a nice piece like this, don't worry. You could use straight grain as well. So this piece of cherry is the one we used in the video earlier. This is the other side of the wood. Now, if I'm doing a regular spoon, I would make the crank, let's say the stop cut right there, and then the bowl goes up there, and the handle goes up here. In the fork, that's not exactly what I want. I want this area not to have any short grain, so I would make it like that, and then like that. And here would be my fork and the handle. So I would make a stop cut all the way down to here, axe away this, and then cut this, and then this would be the shape of my fork. That way the short grain would be along here, and I would get this nice feathered effect on the handle. And right here I would have nice, straight, strong grain, which will last me a really long time. I can poke it into a nice soft potato.
And in terms of wood varieties, like softwoods, hardwoods, is there any kind of advice or tips you can give regarding that?
Well, you do want harder the better in this case. And there are some woods that just tend to warp a little bit more than others. And that might be okay. You can do 90% of the fork and then carve out the rest of it after it dries. That is one way to do it. Usually I just pick woods that don't warp as much, and then I haven't had any problems so far. It's a learning process. Sometimes I will make a fork and it'll just mess up, and then it'll just go like this. But once I found a wood that I'm comfortable using, for instance, the oak was fantastic, and it stayed straight and didn't warp at all. We'll see how the cherry works out during the video. So first thing at this stage is to split it. So I've already sawed this area off. I'm going to go right to the pith and try to break it up from right there. Split right down the middle. So I can just saw the rest of this out or axe all this away. But first, I think I'll take off the sides, get it to a piece that will be a little bit more comfortable to work with. Something that's squared off a little bit, and then I can lean it up against the block and saw the rest away. And then I know I'm safe and I'm not gonna wreck this area that I wanna keep. It could be fragile.
So for those who may not have watched the first video, what axe are you using?
My trusty Julia Kaltoff axe. It's been my favorite axe for a while. I just love this thing. It's just balanced right for me. I like the size of it. It's not too heavy, not too light. It's a fantastic axe. So this area right here is an area where the grain just runs every direction. It's a really tough and strong area, but it's also very tough to get through. So I'm just gonna saw the rest of this out. It'll make life easier. It's just a bit more to go, and then I'll continue axing. Okay, beautiful.
So this is the back of the fork, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So this area is still a little bit fussy. I need to find the pith of the branch that's coming out here. The pith is the center. It's this little soft area that runs down the middle, and it's split into 3 in this branch. So that means that the grain kind of runs all around it. As you can see, it's all a mess right here. Once I get to a nice smooth area, it'll be running smooth just like in a spoon.
So you're now moving to the front, yeah?
That's right. So now I'm going to clear this area. So I have what to draw my fork on. And as you can see, it's nice and clean. Just want to make a nice little flat area that I can draw on comfortably. I can't go too deep because I don't have much wood here. Just the right amount to go into the width of the fork. The crank is really nice on this one. Just a bit more. So as I was saying earlier, my preference is always a natural crank. If I have it, whenever I see a crank lately, I make a fork. That's usually been my go-to. But if you don't have a crank and you need to poke something, then you can use this method that I was showing before. So I'm just going to cut off the ends just like I would making a spoon. You just want to make sure that you're as parallel to the ground as you can be, or to the top of you, really. That's nice. Put this aside. Grab my trusty Kaltoff. Now, when you're axing a spoon with a crank, you want to be really careful not to touch this area, right? But in this case with the fork, I really want to just knock it off, just like that, because I'm going to want a flat area right here. And then I kind of flatten this out, just like I would with a crank, except this area is going to be completely straight grain. And there you go. This is going to be your fork crank, just like that. And then from here on, you continue the process just like we did with the crook. So I'm going to be drawing the handle here. This is going to be the 2/3 of the fork, and then the tongs are just going to go right here. tines. Okay, so we have a nice base to sketch out our fork. Let me get a few of the tools I need. First, I'm going to find the center here and mark it. So I would say it is something like that. And I just want to make sure that my grain runs straight, especially when I am going to be carving out right here. I want it to be as straight as I possibly can get it. I'm going to be using a template. Now, you don't have to use templates. I spoke about templates a little bit earlier in the previous video of spoon carving, but I enjoy them. I can put them on, take them off as much as I want. I can mix between them. I can put a certain spoon bowl with a different handle. In this case, what we're going to do is just going to take the handle from this template. This is a template from the spoon crank. It was designed by my friend Chaim and sold through Dio at the spoon crank. I'm going to put it straight up to about there. There is a mark right there where the crank should go, where the low point is, and I'm going to use that for this fork as well. So I'm just going to mark it out like that. Now, since it's a fork, I don't need the bowl. This is like the fork you saw earlier in the video, and that's just the handle. And then I will mark out the bowl just from that corner up. Sorry about that. There we go. That's one circle, and then we'll mark an inner circle for the bowl for later. And then from here, I pull out straight tangent lines that run from here. And then right there, I'm looking at where these two match up. Right above that. And I am at a right angle to here. And then I will pull this up a little bit more. Maybe not that far. This is just by eye. And then I mark my center lines right there.
Is there a certain number of tines that you include in the fork, or?
Yes, 4.
4. Is that for rigorous fork carving testing?
I just think that's the right amount. If I do 3, I feel it's more of a cocktail fork. So if I'm making a straight fork without a crank for olives or cornichon or something like that, I'll do like a 3. But I think that 4 is just the right amount. So next I'm going to be sawing right here and right here, and then doing the same steps I would usually do in a spoon. So I could do some stop cuts right here, just not to take a risk and lose this general area over here, and start tightening everything up as close as I can from the top view, just like I would in the steps I do in a spoon. So I'm just going to go around now and quickly clean that up.
So just one question I have for you, just to kind of loosely cover what you've done here in terms of the drawing. So the handle, you've used a template.
Yes, but of course you don't have to use a template. You could draw out a handle. There's many different ways to draw out a handle. You could just do it freehand completely. But in this case, yeah, I just stuck this on and drew around, used this as a guide for where I'm starting out the bowl of the fork, because the fork has a bowl as well. And then I drew out just the 5 straight lines, which I'm going to be sawing out, which will give me 4, and that's it.
This is a sulky saw, yeah, that you've got.
Yeah, this is my little pocket boy. It's a really nice little saw. I take it when I go abroad because it's so lightweight and easy, and it really does the work of a big saw. It's incredible. Now here I can do my little stop cuts just to be sure. I've mentioned this in the last video, but make sure you're going parallel to the floor, or otherwise you'll pay the price later and you'll have to start over again. And if you go at an angle, you'll meet the 2 points at the end and then you might lose the handle. Just like in the spoon, I'm just trying to come in as close as I can, but I don't want to take a risk, so I'll do what I feel comfortable doing with the axe, get as close as I can without risking losing anything.
So this is the back of the fork, yeah?
Yeah. Now the grain here is still a little bit difficult, so I'm working very slowly and carefully, not with the confidence I would with a spoon, where I would know exactly how the grain is going to go. Not because it's a fork, just because of what was going on in that crank. Now in this area, the grain is more predictable, so I can go straight through. I think I'm comfortable moving on to the knife work right here. Maybe I'll give it a little extra piece there because I know I'm going to do a little kickback right here in the back of the fork. That's about it. Now I'm going to do some cleanup work with the knife. Let's sit down. I moved on to a different blade here. This is made by my friend Adam Ashworth, and handled by my good friend Benoit. He just does these lovely one piece of wood with the pith inside handle. Really simple and elegant. I love this knife. The reason I moved to a different blade is because I haven't sharpened the other one yet from the last hard cherry I did in the video earlier today. It's always good to have a few different blades, and then I do all my sharpening together. So essentially this is the same stages as you would with a fork. You're just doing a nice tight 90-degree top view all around.
I think the London police have been informed you're carving a fork.
Carving a fork, yeah. Somebody from Spoonfest complained about the forks. So just the same as I do in the spoon, I'm going to leave a little bit of material right here so I can play with it, because I'm going to do the pinches that I do over here just like I do in a spoon. Essentially, this area is a spoon that just kind of fades out into a fork, kind of a missing link. Now I'm going to clean this up, as in a moment I'm going to move to the difficult stage. Okay, now here I'm going to just facet these corners just to make it easier to do this top for the side view, just like I do with my spoons. And then I get this extra little kick in addition to the crank. It's just a nice place to hold your finger in addition to the look. It's also ergonomic. Starting to take shape. It already looks pretty cool, I think. The moment that I take these facets out, suddenly it starts to kind of come to life for me. I think you kind of start seeing the potential. Okay. Now this stage, I don't want to do it too late. If this was wood that I would be really worried about warping, I would finish off everything else, hollow out a little bit the bowl, and let it dry. But we don't have time for that. So I'm going to move on straight to the next step. I'll just do a little bit of the back here because I love this stage and it's hard for me to stop. Okay, so this area is flattened out and I have a roughed out handle, and now I'm ready to pull out the saw. All right.
So you're bracing this on the stump and now...
Yeah, get it started is always the most difficult part. Once it's in and starts, it's not such a big deal, but it slips away pretty easily in the beginning. Now you just have to be careful not to go too far and to go straight. That's one. There we go. That's two. Now I've seen quite a few carvers that drill these out. Now that is very smart to do. It helps have a clean finish right here. You use a brand new, very sharp drill, and it can help keep it from splitting. But I like to work hard. I just do it this way, and then I'll show you the next step soon. I just cut this out. Okay, so I kind of do the handle like I would in a spoon. So tighten it up around just the top view. I still have some leftovers from the facets I did to lower down the top to get that extra little kick in addition to the crank. And my next, after I sawed, my next step is to hollow out the bowl. Back to my Avinoam hook knife. I mentioned this in my last video. He's a local bladesmith, a young guy, started in his teens and just makes phenomenal hook knives. Really, really nice. So I really recommend these if anybody's looking for a good hand-forged hollow ground hook knife. And now I'm going to bring in these all the way into here because I want it to kind of fade out into that. So I'm making these already smaller, just like that. There we go. It does have like a bowl, just like a spoon would, but then that bowl kind of fades out flat into this. just like that. I put this aside for a little bit. There's going to be some back and forth between the two of them. I'm going back to my straight knife, and I kind of start this facet that's going to run all the way around here. You see that I'm going to meet up to the side facet that I started all around here. Now, of course, you don't have to do the fork this way. This is just the way I carve spoons, so this is the way I carve forks, but you could have any kind of transition that you want here. There's so many different options of how the bowl meets the handle, and you could do whatever you want. This is just the way I carve, so it's the way I make my forks, with that pinch that I like to do right there, where this material meets this area and these kind of highlights meet these, and then I get this nice transition that I like very much. Okay. Already starting to take shape. Now, most of these stages have been, I guess you could say, fun, except the sawing, which is nerve-wracking every time I do it. It's not a comfortable position to work in, and it's easy to mess up. Other than that, everything has been just like spoon carving. Now the next step, I'm going to want a smaller blade, a thinner blade. You don't have to. You can do it with your Mora. You could do it with any knife. This is what's called a turning Slojd, and this one is forged by Nick and sharpened by Dave the bodger. It's a really nice blade. It's thin and short, so it's comfortable for this, but you could do this with any detail knife. And now I'm just trying to widen the spaces between them evenly. Now, you have to be really careful when working here. Now, the grain is fairly straight, but it can wobble a little bit, and that happens, and then suddenly you can lose the tip here.
So you're taking out an even width, or are you tapering in slightly?
I am tapering in slightly, but most of it is going to be widened down here. So yeah, it's pretty consistent along. You see, I dug in pretty fast right there, so I'm going to change direction and just release that. I'm just going to be very careful in this process because it's very easy to ruin it. All right, flip it over to do the other side. Now, even with this straight grain, it can still mess up pretty fast. And the eye really catches these little details, so you really want to do whatever you can to make this as smooth and straight. It's a lot of back and forth. This part can take a while. And I try to go between all of them, not finish up one and then move to the next, because it's very easy sometimes to a little bit do too much on this side, and then you have to balance them out. So doing them one and then moving over a little bit is my way of trying to make them as even as I can.
From the angle I'm looking at it, is
Yeah.
the middle gap slightly shorter than the other two? Or is that just my eyesight?
It's just your eyesight.
I need glasses as well.
They should be perfect. But yeah, that definitely happens. We sometimes saw one of them a little bit less than the other, but we can fix it up when we're doing our finishing cuts, because it's really, really very small differences between them, a millimeter or so. If you're not familiar with this knife is really designed for tight curves. That's why it's called a turning Sloyd. So it's so narrow, and then you don't get the chatter, and you can really do these tight curves really, really nicely. That's what it's all about in this specific knife.
Worth mentioning for those watching who may not be aware, but I've done a detailed video series filmed with Nick Westerman on how he forges and makes one of his turning Sloyd knives.
It's a really handy tool to have. Now, you really can carve a spoon or a fork or anything with just the 4 basic tools. We call it 4 basic tools, right? It's the axe and the saw and the straight blade and the hook tool. I guess you'd count the mallet and the pencil in addition into this, and you can keep adding things if you want, but that shouldn't stop you. You can get an endless amount of tools. You don't really need to stop with 4. And this is definitely one of those tools that is a fun tool in the arsenal of a carver.
So moving forward, can people cite you in this video for their excuse to go and buy more tools?
Yeah. Send your spouse to me and I'll explain the situation. Starting to look like a fork. Now here I'm aiming to do exactly what the turning sloyd is for and kind of make a U right in here, this U shape, and clean up the mess that the saw left behind, because the teeth just dig in there and I have to get in at least past the depth of the teeth with my blade so I don't have those tear outs from the blade. So when I sawed, I made sure that just the tip of the blade reaches my mark and not past that, because otherwise I would have to dig past it. So just remember that when you're sawing. Yeah, this part really takes a while, which is nice because after a while spoon carving does get quick and then you move on to decorating just to fill your time, and this definitely fills your time. Okay, so I'm just doing some last finishing cuts, the same as I would with a spoon. So at this point, usually I'm trying to decide how many facets I want on it. I think in this case, I'm gonna leave it simple like this. So I'll just do this little depressions right here. Same in the back, just make it, as I've mentioned in my other video, I want to make sure these lines run parallel across. That really is where the eye is drawn to check if things are done correctly and clean. The thing is with a crank, that sometimes the grain and orientation that you're used to surprises you. It's sometimes you would expect to be pulling when you need to be pushing, and vice versa. So just don't do aggressive cuts. Be careful, test out, feel where the direction of the grain, and only then push through. Otherwise you might pay the price and have to make it a smaller handle, and that happens. So I'm just going to clean up a few last cuts. Now this cherry is very fresh. It feels like I'm going to need to put it aside a few days, at least a few days, and let it dry. You can see here that I used the turning sloyd to really get these rounded off and cleaned up, and I kind of also have these as faceted. So I've got a top view, and I did this little facet in the corner, the same here, and the side view, and then the same in the back. So they're kind of broken up into these little shapes. And then what I do is at the end, I just go and cut all of these to make them pointy. And then they work much, much better. I will go over it and fix everything a little bit up after it is dry, but this is the state I want to get to before I let it dry. If I'm worried about the fork warping too much, I have made this little jig for it. I just take a little piece of wood, I mark out the distance, I drill holes, and I put it on. And then while it's drying, it keeps them in line. And then I can pull it off after it's dry, and it stays perfectly straight. But
Oh, interesting.
there you go, here's a fork.
So, a couple of final questions to wrap up the process. So, both of those being respectively drying and oiling. So what's your process for drying? So you said at this stage you would typically leave it, then come back and do the finishing cuts.
Yeah.
So assuming you've done that, what would then be the process to fully dry it?
So after I feel it's completely dry, it's sitting in my drying basket. If I am worried about it really warping and cracking, it's a wood that might do that. I do the bag method. I put it inside a plastic bag, close it up, and turn it inside out every day. Let it dry slowly till I feel that it really doesn't lose any more moisture, and then I can let it out into the air and let it dry properly. And then after it's dry, I will go over it with a knife, go over the entire spoon, and get really nice clean cuts with a nice sharp knife. And then I just put a quick coat of oil over it and start using it.
What's your preference for oil?
I like tung oil. I know that some people don't like the smell of tung oil. There is people that are sensitive to it. I kind of like the smell of it, so I use tung oil. I like the way it dries faster a little bit than the others. I have used half and half by the Real Milk Paint. I've tried different ones, but tung oil usually is my go-to, just pure tung oil. You know, people can learn to like the taste and smell of tung oil. I know some spoon carvers don't oil their stuff and leave it for whoever is using it to oil it themselves with whatever preference they have. You don't really need to oil it. You can use it as is, but it will get stains. And usually the oils for me is mostly just to keep it from getting stained.
So there you have it, my friends. That is a wrap for this video. Oren, thank you so much.
Thank you, Zed.
Honestly, as is always the case, the honor is all mine, the pleasure is all mine. This is the first time in its entirety I've seen a fork being carved. In my head, I've tried to piece it together over the years. I'm like, oh, I reckon that's how to do that bit, that bit, that bit. But to see the whole process in its entirety in this video, especially from your good self, has just been eye-opening for me to film, as it hopefully is for you watching this video. Like I said, this is a topic I've been wanting to cover for a long time, and who better to do it with than Oren Hetzroni. So, just a few things to kind of recap on in this video. As we mentioned at the very beginning, this is part 2 of a 2-part series I filmed with Oren on this particular visit as he's been passing through London on his travels. So in the previous video was a complete full-length tutorial in which Oren demonstrated his entire process for carving a spoon, literally from a raw piece of wood all the way to a finished product. There's obviously a lot of crossover between those two kind of utensils being carved. So if you haven't watched that previous video, I highly recommend you do so, and link to that will be down below in the description. Also, there have been a few things referenced in this video, and what I'm going to be doing is putting links down below to those things that have been referenced by Oren in regards to carving a wooden fork. Also, I'm going to put links to Oren's Instagram. Now, it will mean the world to me that if you get any value from this video whatsoever, to give Oren a follow on Instagram. But there's a caveat that if you have a go at carving a fork, regardless of how it comes out, okay, and regardless of what skill level you are at, even if you're a beginner all the way to someone who's had a lot of experience, I think, Oren, would I be right in saying that it will be lovely for you to see people's attempts?
Oh yeah, I'd love to see what you come up with, definitely.
At carving a fork, right?
I would love that, yeah.
And so
I love seeing what other people carve.
So tag Oren, right, on Instagram or anywhere on social media, and he would absolutely love, as I would, to see your attempts, regardless of whatever level you're at carving a fork. Because it can seem a little bit daunting, right? A fork, right?
Yeah.
And I actually have a quick question for you on that.
Sure.
And this is also actually a question that I have, is if you've got someone who, let's say they haven't carved a spoon before, or they don't consider themselves very good at carving spoons, would you recommend that people get a little bit comfortable and au fait with the spoon carving process before they embark on carving a fork? Or would you say it doesn't really matter, you can just dive straight in?
Well, the fork we did in this video, I would call it a bit of an advanced fork. You could do a very straight fork without any crank, without all these fancy curves, and then it would be just as simple as carving your first spoon. In some ways, it could even be a little bit easier in certain things in it, because you are carving out and you don't have to deal with the end of the bowl. So I say just do it and see what happens. Another one and another one just gets easier.
And one final thing, and this is something I'm excited about, is in between obviously filming, and as we're obviously filming this last portion of this video here, what Oren said that he will kindly do is create a template, a fork template, and make it available for you to download for absolutely free, which is amazing. It's very, very kind of you, Oren. So to access that template, what I'm going to do is put a link below to the page on Oren's website where you can download that template completely for free and hopefully use that as an aid for having a go yourself, regardless of whatever skill level you're at. So once again, I really do appreciate you offering that to the viewers. And so, like I said, links to everything that we've mentioned in this video are down below in the description. And a final reminder, we have broken this video down into different sections. So if you hover along the timeline, you can see all those different sections marked out. And they're all also listed down below with the according timestamp as well. Because as I mentioned in all these videos that I do, as well as these videos with Oren, these are a teaching aid, okay? These are a reference material. So as you move forward, as you're following along, you can come back to this video and find the segment that you need to help you in whatever part of the process you are on, carving a fork or carving a spoon that Oren showed in the previous video. So, you know, I don't do short, snazzy entertainment videos, right? In case you're familiar with my channel. So mine are kind of full length, you know, informative, that hopefully show you the entirety of the process without kind of leaving anything out whatsoever. And I need to kind of give credit to Oren as well. He worked really hard with this video in terms of planning it out and making sure he covers everything possible to hopefully leave nothing out. So when you go away and attempt this yourself, hopefully this video contains most, if not all, of the information you're going to need to pursue a project like this. So as we kind of end off, is there any kind of parting words regarding this particular project for those that are watching and are potentially going to have a go for the first time in carving a fork? Is it kind of any words of advice or kind of pointers that you like to give to people?
I think a lot of people are put off by it, just kind of worried in the beginning, and are scared that it might be more complicated than it is. And I hope this video helps people see that it really isn't that complicated. There's a few basic things that are just important to remember, just like in anything else. And once you're aware of them, it's great to learn from other people's mistakes. And this will hopefully keep you from making those mistakes and make more forks.
And one thing actually I just remembered is to actually ask you is, you obviously make items yourself, and they're beautiful items, by the way. Oren's carvings are coveted, by the way. obviously you kind of carve and you make them available to sell, right? So for people to kind of purchase.
Yeah.
How will people find out about the items that you make and sell? Is it through Instagram, or what's the kind of best way for people to see the items that you carve, like the forks and spoons, etc.?
Well, I have a web store on my site, but I'm not always great at updating it. So Instagram is probably the best, and don't be shy. Just send me a message, and I'll send you pictures of whatever I happen to have available. Or if you see something you like on my page, just shout out, and I'll let you know if it's up for sale, and usually it is. So if you're interested, I think it's great to have other people's works, all carvers, just to hold in your hand and learn from. There's nothing like feeling the object and seeing it from all directions, to be able to learn and copy and then develop in your own process. So I think that's really great to have.
And one final thing, there's always a final thing with me. There's one final thing I also remembered is, and I mentioned this in a previous video that I did with Oren with the spoon carving, is Oren does teach both back home in Israel, but also abroad internationally as well. He's here at the UK, having done just that, teach at Spoonfest. So if you want to be kept up to date with learning from Oren in person, which I highly recommend you do, by the way, then also details for that will be also on his Instagram and on his website as well. So Oren, a sincere thank you once again for allowing me to spend time with you, which is always a pleasure, and to document your process so that others may learn. Now, he's been very generous with allowing me to just document everything, you know, to help you guys out. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. It's a real honour and treat for me. Like I said, you always been one of those top people. I'll be like, I want to collaborate with Oren one day. So it's been great that logistics have worked out and we've been able to do just that. So a sincere thank you once again.
Well, it's been great. Thank you, Zed.
Thank you. So there you go, guys. Really do appreciate you watching all the way up until the end, and genuinely hope you've enjoyed this video and also the previous video that I filmed with Oren. As I mentioned, links to everything down below. And that is a wrap for this video. And I shall see you in the next installment on the other Zed Outdoors video. And until then, I hope whatever you're doing, you have a blessed day, a blessed week ahead. From Oren Hetzroni and myself, Zed Outdoors. Peace out.